I am just casually sitting here in my Disney World 2017, you can't see that, can you? There it is, t-shirt, because today I'm going to be talking about my tips for going to Disney World with young children. If you're new to my channel, I went to Disney World this summer with my 3 children who were at the time 6, 4 and 14 months old. Going with young children was just honestly the best experience. I can't even describe how much of a treat it felt to be able to take them at that age and watch them experience it all. They thought everything was just so magical. They were totally into the whole idea of Disney World. Everything was real to them. It was just so lovely. If you're thinking of taking young children to Disney World, or perhaps you've planned your trip already, I am so excited for you. There is so much for them to do at that age, even for really little ones like babies. Our little one was 14 months old when we went, and there was loads for him to do, so I would not hesitate at all about booking a trip with young children. My first bunch of tips is going to centre around hiring a stroller or a pushchair, the benefits of doing that, the differences between hiring one in the Disney parks versus bringing your own or hiring from another company. So skip forward if hiring strollers does not apply to you at all, but bear in mind that if you've got a child 6 years and under, it probably will apply to you, and I'm going to explain the reasons why we found one useful even for my 6-year-old. My first tip is simply hire a pushchair or bring one. We have 3 children, one's a baby, so we were obviously going to bring a pushchair. We decided to hire a double so that 2 of them could use it. The parks are massive. There's a lot of walking to be done. Even my 6-year-old flagged, and because we were coming from the UK, we had the jet lag issue. So although the older 2 children don't nap, there were times when they needed to have a little sleep, or we were out late after watching the fireworks and everyone crashed. So having that pushchair as a base was really valuable, and it meant that we got to go and do things much faster. We could walk around the park, get from attraction to attraction much quicker, so we covered a lot more ground, literally. It's also great for storing all the kit that you bring with you. So if you're not sure if you need one, you can hire them in the park. That's not a problem. You can just go with the flow, do it when you need to. The reason we didn't hire one of the park ones is because they are hard bucket seats. They're plastic seats, they don't recline, and because we had a 14-month-old, you know, he needed somewhere comfy to sit and he needed to be able to sleep. So one of the park pushchairs was never going to work. So what we decided to do was to hire a double pushchair from one of the companies in Orlando that specialise in doing this. I will link to them below. I think there's about 3 or 4 companies that do it, and I don't know if there's much difference between them. I think they're all probably about the same, so we just went with the one that had the best deal at the time. If you're staying at a Disney hotel, the great thing about these companies is they're so familiar with all the hotels, so we found it such a seamless process. We hired our pushchair, put in the dates we needed it. It was delivered to our hotel, so it was there when we arrived, and to drop it off we just took it back to the lobby and handed it in to them. There was no extra process to do. We didn't have to go somewhere else to pick it up. It just all worked really well, and it came with everything we needed, including a rain cover, and it was completely clean, and it was cheaper than hiring a park stroller, so I 100% recommend it. We hired a baby jogger City Mini double, and it was the GT version. We have this one at home, and the reason that I hired this one is because the GT version has slightly longer seats, so it meant that my 6-year-old would still be comfortable sitting in it, which was quite important for us, that we could hire a pushchair that suited all the age ranges of our children. Another reason that I loved hiring a pushchair from a separate company rather than the Disney park ones is that you waste time in the park. You've got to go in there and straight away you've got to go to the stroller bit and hire one, and that takes time, and then when you leave you have to drop it off, and then you're left without any stroller for the rest of your walk home after you leave the park. Anyway, I think that's probably enough about strollers, but my point is 100% hire one if you have young children. I think if we'd only had our 6-year-old and we didn't have the younger children, we'd probably even have hired a pushchair just for him, because it makes life just that bit easier and gives you more flexibility for your day. The next tip is to make sure that you check the ride height limits against your child's height before you plan your trip or before you go, because what you don't want to do is be going right when your child is about maybe 2 centimetres or 1 centimetre below one of the major height limits, because there's bound to be rides that they want to go on that they're not able to. Obviously if you can't avoid it, it's fine, but you know, you want to plan your trip carefully. You want to make sure that you make the most of it. So if your child is really near that height limit but not quite there, it's probably worth waiting a couple of months before you go on your Disney World trip. My next tip is about rider switch or baby swap. If you haven't heard of it, it basically means that when you go up to a ride, you can ask them when you're on your way in to have a baby swap ticket, and that means that if one of you has a child who's under the height limit and you've got to wait with them whilst the rest of your family go on the ride, it means that when they come out, you can go back on and you can take your children on. So it basically means you all get to experience the ride, not together, but you all get to go on. And the really good thing is that your older children who can ride it, it basically means they get to ride the ride twice without using up an extra fast pass. The baby swap tickets are valid all day, unlike a fast pass which is time limited and it expires after a certain amount of time. You can come back and use your baby switch pass whenever you want throughout the day. It's valid the whole day. My next tip is about early magic hours. If you are staying at a Disney resort hotel, you will have access to something called early magic hours, which is where the park is open to hotel guests and not to anyone else. So you get an hour in the park before it starts to get really busy and all the non-hotel guests are allowed to enter. We found this so useful. In that first couple of hours in the morning, that was our most productive part of the day. We got so many rides under our belt before those few hours were up. And also, you've got young children, you're going to be up early anyway, so you might as well plan your day so you're making the most of those first few hours. So yeah, my tip would be make sure you're making the most of the early magic hours when you're planning out your fast passes. And if you're not staying at a Disney hotel, make sure you're making the most of the first hour or two, because it's still pretty quiet first thing in the morning. There are so many tips about kind of the practicalities about taking young children to Disney World. I'm kind of gonna go at it from an angle about how it feels to take young children to Disney World. So my final tip is to not let the pressure take hold. And what I mean by that is, you've planned a Disney World trip, you know, that's cost a lot of money. You've planned it with your young children because you want to see them have a good time, you want to see them experience the magic. There's a lot of pressure there for it to be kind of exactly how you imagined it to be. But kids are unpredictable and they won't always stick to the plan that we've carefully thought about. I am a planner, I love a plan, and there were moments when I kind of had to just take a step back and sort of go with the flow, let go of the plan. Of course, this does tend to happen from time to time. Our children, they were so good when we were away, but I mean, even the best child in the world is gonna have their moments because they're overtired, they're overstimulated, there's a lot of excitement. I have a child on the autistic spectrum, so believe me, I get it that Disney can be a place of high expectations. If you're kind of feeling overwhelmed about planning, or you're kind of stressed because things aren't going to plan when you're there, just don't worry about it. Just kind of take a step back, reconnect with your family, and just don't worry about the pressure to have fun absolutely 100% of the time. So I think my point is that it is really good to have a plan, to plan ahead, but also to learn to recognize when maybe you might need to let go of that plan. And that's definitely something that I kind of went on a journey with during our time at Disney World this summer. So that's it, that's kind of all my big tips. I just want to say that it was the most incredible thing to take our children whilst they were so young. It was brilliant for the kids, obviously, but more than that, it was such a lovely thing for me and Sam. I know that we're just going to remember this for the rest of our lives, that we got to take them at these really young, innocent ages, and it was just so nice to watch them experience it all. And I do think that if you can only do one Disney World trip in your family's lifetime, I would probably pick to go when they were a bit older, because I'd want them to be able to remember it and to be able to go on all the big rides and all of that. But if you are in a position that you can plan a trip when they're really young, 100% go for it. You will have the best time, take loads of pictures and do loads of character meets and stuff if they like characters, because it's that sort of stuff that I think when we go back in a couple of years, my kids might not be that interested in anymore. So I'm really glad that we got to do it now. I'm guessing if you're watching this, you're either thinking about booking a trip or you've already booked one. So leave me a comment to let me know when you're going, or if you've been, let me know what was one of your best tips for taking young children and what your children enjoyed the most. What was your favourite part of your Disney World trip? Thank you for watching. Bye.